A lot of people think that the Fed has been successful in reducing inflation because, it went from 9 down to 3. And so maybe an extra quarter point or maybe a half point will complete the journey, right? Because we're almost there, but we're actually miles away, because the main reason that you saw that big drop from 9 to 3 was a collapse of oil prices and other commodity prices that was basically brought about by a surge in the dollar, where currency traders were starting to price in all the rate hikes. So the Fed actually already got all the bang for the rate hike buck from that move. Now, oil prices are headed back up. We're back above $81 a barrel today, headed higher. Other commodity prices as well. The dollar has peaked, I think, and is declining. So the headline CPI probably has bottomed out in the low 3s, and now it's headed back up. Meanwhile, if you look at the core, which is what the Fed claims is more important anyway, that's still around 5. And the decline in the core is far less than the decline in headline. I mean, it's barely gone down, despite the fact that we've moved interest rates from 0 to 5.5. So if the terminal rate is 5 3/4, 6, that's not much from where we are now. And so why would that actually do anything when we haven't seen a meaningful decline? And also, people forget that these rate hikes are in and of themselves price hikes, because it's the price of credit, the price of borrowing. And so every business that has debt is now having to pay more to service that debt, whether it's your landlord who's got a mortgage, a commercial mortgage that's resetting, or it's a business that has borrowed money to purchase plant or equipment and has interest rates to pay. That's just like labor costs or raw material costs. It's another cost of doing business that is rising. And so businesses then try to pass on those higher costs to their end consumer with higher prices. So as higher interest rates continue to work their way through the cost structure, you've got more upward pressure. So I don't see how the Fed has really accomplished much of anything. And also, if you think about the way rate hikes are supposed to reduce inflation, and Powell will admit this when he talks, they're supposed to reduce aggregate demand by making it more expensive to borrow, so that people will borrow less and they'll spend less, and that'll, slow the economy, the way they describe it. But none of that is happening. Credit card debt is at an all-time record high. The government budget deficits are skyrocketing. We're on a run rate now of north of $2 trillion a year in deficit spending, and we're not even technically in a recession yet. I mean, normally when you're in a recession, the deficits double or triple. And so, but they're already enormous. And so even though the Fed has been making credit more expensive, it hasn't slowed down demand for borrowing. Consumers just are paying the higher prices, borrowing the money anyway, and spending it. So all that spending is still driving prices higher. So I don't think the Fed has made any headway at all. Well, the way they've doctored the numbers is they've doctored the CPI itself. So they would have to make changes again to the methodology of computing the CPI, which I think they may have already done that to a degree, and they may do that some more. But that's why the whole thing is ridiculous, because when they say 2%, they actually mean 4%. Because if we measured prices today the way we did in the 1970s, 2% would be 4%. And in fact, all the years where the Fed claimed we didn't have enough inflation, which was all BS to begin with, because it was below its 2% target and we needed more inflation, we were never really below that target. We were above it the whole time. It's just that they were measuring it improperly. And the reason they did that was because they wanted to justify printing all this money to stimulate, the economy and to finance deficit spending and, to take the politicians off the hook from having to make the difficult political choices that may have jeopardized their reelection, because absent the Fed printing all this money and keeping interest rates artificially low, politicians would have had to have cut spending. And so that means that they risk losing the votes of the people who were losing their money. And so nobody had to do this because we were able to create all this inflation. But now the inflation chickens have come home to roost. And, this is a huge, huge problem that's insolvable and is going to get worse. No, I mean, I don't think they're inherently evil, nor do I think they're smart enough to do this on purpose. I think it's a combination of ignorance. You think these guys are so smart, right? Oh, they must be the smartest people because they got these jobs. No, they didn't get the jobs because they were smart. If they really understood economics, they wouldn't have even been considered for these jobs. These are bureaucrats, right? They're not the smartest people in the world when it comes to understanding finance or economics. If they were that smart, they'd be, running hedge funds or something. I mean, they wouldn't be sitting at the Fed. So these guys don't know what's going on. The fact that we ascribe some kind of like all-knowing power, that they actually know what's going on in the economy and that they actually can micromanage it by tinkering with interest rates, and they're going to somehow, improve everybody's lives, by trying to manipulate the price of money and the money supply. That's sheer nonsense. So they're not as smart as everybody thinks they are, number one. And they went to all the normal universities and had the type of career path, so they learned all this Keynesian BS, and that's how they had the qualifications to get appointed to these jobs. So they don't really understand that much, but they're also concerned about postponing any pain. They're very political at the Fed, despite the fact that they claim to be independent. The Fed chairman tends to do whatever he thinks is necessary to make the economy look better for the incumbent administration. And part of that is self-serving, because most of these Fed chairmen and people on the FOMC, they like their jobs. They're probably the best jobs they can get because they're not actually that smart. So they like these cushy jobs. And the president is the one that appoints whoever it is. And so they want to demonstrate that they're team players, that they're going to, if whichever party is in power, we're going to do what we can to make you look good, to help you get reelected so we can get reappointed. And so I think they're looking at this massive problem and thinking, holy shit, we can't allow the markets to try to correct these mistakes because there's so many of them. We're so screwed up. It's like we're going to have one hell of a hangover if we stop taking these drugs now.